I'm Iron Dutch Murdoch.
So last night was the big UFC 261. Fans returned, and what a phenomenal card it was.
Yeah.
I think last night was the first time I've picked all five, and we'll get into that, of the main cards fights with the actual winners.
Yeah.
But let's just start from the top and go down. Usman
looked phenomenal. He definitely, Mazadov's had two shots at him now. I realized the first time was on short notice. But Usman continues to improve. The guy's only 2 wins behind Anderson Silva as far as consecutive win streak. And, obviously, I don't like putting the GOAT title on somebody that's still current. But boy, right now he is doing a good job of cleaning out his division. It's going to be real interesting to see. Of course, Colby Covington was in attendance, and he is posturing, trying to get himself back up there to the title shot. Colby did well against Usman, but even in that match, Usman was well on his way to winning that fight, even if it would have went to a decision. So Usman is a lot to handle right now in the welterweight division.
He is, and I think with this corner, I think Trevor Whitman's a terrific coach. He's just got Usman, Rose, and Justin Gaethje. That's all he focuses on.
Yeah.
So I think it's really important that a coach, if it gets too spread, and they become spread thin, do they lose that special? Keeping an eye on.
I will say this too. I saw an interview with Mazadov, and he said that he was anticipating more wrestling this go round, and obviously Usman chose to stand. I also think, just in watching, I don't think Mazadov was respecting Usman's power and his punches, because there were times where Mazadov was leaving his hands down and kind of showboating a little bit. And don't get me wrong, man. I mean, obviously when he got hit, he was not in the middle of showboating or anything like that. He got hit in the middle of an exchange, and it was a beautiful shot. But I definitely think, I'll put it to you this way. I'm not interested in seeing Mazadov get another rematch with Usman anytime soon. I think Mazadov needs to find other avenues right now, because Usman has, in my mind, convincingly put a bow on the Mazadov chapter right now. Mazadov's going to have to get some wins under his belt and come back. And,
he's already an old fighter. He was finding that groove again. And so, in turn, that was probably it for Masvidal being a contender for the belt. Well, I think he's still going to have fights to do. But it's very much like Conor McGregor. There's only so much you can do with the guy.
It's funny you mentioned him. Conor McGregor chimed in on Usman, saying that Usman was copying his style of punching, and that that he's thinking about that maybe when he finishes his business here in July, maybe him and Usman have a date to where they need to meet. I'm just gonna say this. I appreciate the fact I'm a Conor McGregor fan, but if Conor McGregor goes in there and fights Usman, that ends poorly for him.
Yes.
And I mean, whether it stays on its feet or whether it goes to the ground.
Yes.
It ends poorly for Conor McGregor.
Oh, it would be horrible. It wouldn't even be worth. That would not even excite me. But now Dana did say in his post-fight media scrum that Colby Covington is next.
Okay.
So that's the next person in line. Well, and that's going to be a hard fight for Usman, because he already held they had a pretty good back and forth fight.
They did
the last time.
They did, but Usman convincingly beat him. It wasn't like he just eked out a decision victory. Usman finished him, and now I'm not taking nothing away from Colby Covington, but Usman, whoever beats Usman's going to have to be just, I mean, I don't know. There's going to be firing on all cylinders. And I don't know that right now the current crop of welterweights that we have are going to be the guys to get it done. You know, Colby Covington, obviously, I think has the tools. But, you know, he's got to go in there and he's going to have to bring it.
I hope he changes up a little bit. I like to see him do a little wrestling and not just stand with Usman. Because if it was me, that's what I would do, yank him to the ground
Usman is proving as a welterweight to have knockout power. Because he's starting to become that guy that when he puts his hands on these people, he's knocking them out.
Right.
Because, you know, he finished Gilbert Burns. You know, it was TKO, but still, he rocked him, he put him down. Mazadov, of course, you know, highlight reel knockout.
Mm-hmm.
And, I mean, Usman is hurting these guys when he puts his hands on them like that. So
right. And then, let's see, the co-main event was Rose taking on Weili Zhang. And once again, Rose pulled it out.
Yes.
Head kick, minute 17 in? I mean, it would look good. I mean, as long as it was.
Yeah.
You know, it's almost like Francis Ngannou. You know, he only fights for a couple minutes, so you can't really say, oh, well, he was really ready to go, because it was already over. But I'm glad to see Rose. I mean, what a head kick.
Yeah. I expect there to be I don't know if it'll be an immediate rematch.
Well, according to Dana, there will be an immediate. That's the trill. I think they're going to do a trilogy fight. And I'll be shocked if they don't try to go over to China.
Okay.
If it was me, but I guess it's all going to wind up being, are you going to want to go over there if the world's still in a pandemic, how China is, or will they just stay here and go
you know what?
Las Vegas?
I say forget China right now until things get settled with COVID. Stay here in the States, keep the fighters safe, and, because not getting political, but at the end of the day, man, let's be honest. China has not been forthcoming with any of their COVID information. And quite frankly, if we get down to brass tacks, you can trace the whole start of this back to China. So I say keep it here in the States, make your money.
Yeah. So, but Rose looked good, and I still think Weili still has a lot to offer. And I think...
that fight never got going.
Right. It will not surprise me to see her back into being the second person who wins the
recapture
the title.
Yeah, I definitely feel like that fight never really got running. You know, obviously Weili she disputed the stoppage. She claims that she was still conscious, that, you know, obviously it stunned her, but she alleges that, you know, she should have been allowed to continue. I still think the ref made the right call. I mean, I think those guys have a duty to protect the fighters. Now, but that being said, I also understand too, you know, when there's that much riding on the line, you know, sometimes it's kind of like, you know, give them a little bit. But that was a beautiful head kick. I probably would have made the same call as the ref. I would have stopped it as well. And I think that, you know, when she comes back around again, it's going to be interesting. You know, the other thing, too, about it is, you know, right before she took the head kick, if you noticed, her feet, she kind of stumbled, and it was like her leg, like she had some it was like, I don't know, her footing looked weird there at first, and so I don't know if some of that maybe threw her off as far as being able to successfully block the kick as it was coming up or move out of the way or something, but it was perfectly timed. It was exciting, and I look forward to the rematch.
Right, and then let's see, Valentina just destroyed
her.
And this was what Dana was talking about today. They said someone asked him, "Is she going to just move up and fight Amanda Nunes?" And he felt like, well, the way it sounded, he had no interest in moving Valentina up to fight Amanda Nunes. And look, Valentina's cleaned out that division. There's no one for her to fight now. So in turn, until she gets a competitor, you know, some divisions, like, you know, will become boring if you have someone there. Like, remember when Mighty Mouse was
cleaned out his division.
and then he was just on top, and no one could handle him. And in turn, people, so in turn, people don't tune in to watch him, and it's not his fault. But sometimes you got to either, if you can't get him competition, you got to move up.
Those two ladies have fought before, correct?
Who's that?
Valentino and Nunes.
Yeah, they fought twice.
Okay.
And Nunes, she squeaked the last one out. I mean, I honestly think you could have went either way. I'd have to rewatch the fight.
Yeah.
And the first one she won, but neither time has she won by any, like, just a straight up beatdown.
Well.
So if she goes up there, Valentina goes up there, she's going to give Nunes trouble, and I could easily see Nunes not want, if she's on her really thinking about retirement, the last thing she wants to do is fight this monster that she might lose to.
Now, we were just talking earlier about not wanting to stick, the title of the GOAT on somebody. But Amanda Nunes is one that I absolutely right now could say is probably the GOAT currently, because when you look at all the past champions, all the big names in female mixed martial arts, with the exception of Gina Carano, Nunes has beat all of them.
Right.
She's beat Cyborg, she's beat Rousey, she's beat Tate, she's beat Holly Holm. She's just beat all the who's who. And I'll be honest, if Gina Carano was still an active fighter, and she would have beat her too. Because Gina Carano curled up over Cyborg, so she didn't want to get beat in the face like
right.
So it would have ended poorly for her as well. So
yeah, but that was the time when a lot of the fighters were one trick ponies.
Right.
That's why Ronda Rousey was able to come in. She had that one trick that she could do really, really well, and then once someone shows up that can do other things, that
right,
it all ends. Let's see. The fourth fight was Chris Weidman taking that devastating
same identical
leg
injury as Anderson Silva,
except opposite leg.
Opposite leg, yeah.
And it was almost I think 8 years ago when Anderson Silva did that.
It was funny because last night, you had the leg injury there with Chris Weidman, and somebody online posted and mentioned that Uriah Hall is the first UFC fighter to win their fight and never having thrown a strike.
Wow.
All he did was check that kick, and he wins.
And he didn't really do much checking. It seemed like he turned his leg a little bit.
Yeah, he just braced for it. Yeah.
It wasn't like he lifted his leg or anything. And then,
Anderson Silva had a lot of positive things. He sent a lot of well wishes to Chris Weidman. Obviously, Uriah Hall had very classy. After. Like, he was not happy with the fact that Chris Weidman injured himself like that,
I tell you, Uriah Hall is one of them guys, and I would love to know if he's in a sports psychologist, because he's a guy that every time he does a devastating knockout, you'll see him, and he'll have his head down. You can see the actual concern on his face. So in turn, is that going to be something that has held him back, or would hold him back, more?
I will say this. I don't know, but it's funny because you had the Weidman leg injury, which mimicked that of Anderson Silva from several years ago, and then Masvidal suffered a brutal knockout, very much like how Darren Till did, in front of his hometown crowd. Well, I realize they weren't in Miami,
still close enough.
But he was fighting in front of his home crowd, and he got knocked out. He got finished like hard.
That's his only second time being knocked out like that, or being knocked out.
I thought he said that was his first time.
Well, he said I think he according to Dana White, he said that was his second time out of all the fights. But yes, he did say in the ring, out of the 50 fights, that was the first time he's been knocked out. So, for all I know, it might have been a TKO, where he was still out, and he don't consider it a knockout.
I got you.
But then, of course, the final fight, the first fight was Anthony Smith, and I cannot remember who he fought, but the guy I think he did something to his knee, but Anthony Smith threw the kick into his knee, and the next thing he had a dead leg. He could bear it was straight up rubber leg, but he was still able to take Anthony Smith to the ground.
Was taking him to the ground at will. And when he got him to the ground, he was actually
doing stuff.
Had offense. So let's be frank here for a second. Anthony Smith is lucky the fight ended where it did, because that was not, if that fight had continued, Anthony Smith would not have left there the winner. I honestly believe that guy would have finished Anthony Smith.
Look, Anthony, if he don't retire, then I mean because
it's crazy. It's even crazy to be saying that, because here just a couple years ago, man.
Yeah, he fought John Jones.
He fought John Jones, and who was it he beat up before John Jones? It was somebody. It was one of the. Was it Shogun? Yeah, I think it was Shogun Hua, man. He went in there, man, and just beat the brakes off him. Like, Shogun had never fought before.
Right.
Just ran in there, man, and beat him up something fierce, man. And now here's this guy, man. He's, you're sitting here calling for him to retire.
Well, now he did fight in Strikeforce, so he's been fighting for a long time.
Okay.
But you're beginning to see, because he is not looking good. Look, as I said earlier, right before when we started, how we won you won all your parlay, I won my parlay, and that was my big fight, was because I said he had lost 2 in a row, and I figured he wanted to win this one really bad.
Well, I think they all want to win really bad.
Well, that's
true. Your logic there is still not sound, but it's
it
funny.
Did work out for me last night.
Yeah, it's funny because I went with 2 underdogs out of the 5 that I parlayed. Went with Rose, and I went with Anthony Smith, and I mean, it worked out. Obviously, last night went in my favor, but
yes,
boy,
it could have been a close one. And I think Anthony Smith, out of all of them, he was the one that was really. I don't think I'd ever back him again, because he really does look like he's on the last legs of his career.
Yeah. I still think there's something to be said, though, with having the different leagues. Because he's a young enough guy that if he fought comparable fighters, age-wise, experience-wise,
right.
I think he could still put on some exciting fights. But, when you start fighting these younger guys, age and all that stuff, especially in the world of professional sports, whether you like to admit it or not, man, age does become a factor. It's just like in golf. You have the Masters League, but I mean, it would be nice to see some of these guys. I mean, because God bless, look how long Randy Couture and Dan Henderson and those guys competed.
Right.
And then of course you had Dan Severson. Where if you called him on the phone and said, "Hey, we're having a fight out in the backyard, can you be on it?" Yeah, as long as it counts towards his professional record.
Yeah.
And hell, he's what, 60-something?
Right, he's finally retired.
Yeah.
Thankfully.
But any idea how many total fights he had?
No, but I'll look it up.
Because, the thing about it is, man, he got so many fights under his belt. Don't get me wrong, man, even at his age now, Dan Henderson would not be a man that you'd want to trifle with. Especially an untrained individual. And hell, some of these 101 fights.
And he had 19 losses and 1 no contest.
Now, that's an impressive record. However, when you get down to records, how many of those guys out of that 101 victories he has were true competition? Like, in other words, weren't like one of these these little amateur shows where he's going on as the pro, coming in and fighting a guy that's making his pro debut, but he's never fought somebody with the skill set of Dan Severson.
Right. But, hey, he did his
101 victories, 19 losses, 1 no contest.
Yeah, he was the former NWA National Wrestling Alliance champion, and I'm always surprised. And he's always carried the belt around, so he always made it seem like it was gave it some prestige.
Let me tell you something. That's exactly right. Because when he was the NWA heavyweight champion, he carried that belt with as much pride as he carried any of his MMA belts.
Look, here is a picture with UFC belts on, and then there he's got the NWA belt on his shoulder.
That's right. At the end of the day, that was a championship he won.
Right.
And I'm telling you, that's why I think that's the real world champion, right there. To me, that's the recognized.
And if you look right here, here he is in the cage. He just won. He's holding up the
both
NWA
titles.
belt.
Yes.
And whoever was running the NWA at the time should have definitely capitalized on something like that. But of course, we know how the NWA's been rolling, and they just finally found their footing, and they've got to pretty much rebuild from start.
Because you think about it, when Brock Lesnar fought Mark Hunt on UFC 200, okay? When he went out to fight Mark Hunt, he didn't walk out with the WWE title in the air. No. But he walks out with the NWA title.
Yeah.
So, I mean, I'm just saying, say what you will, but I believe the NWA World Wrestling, or the NWA Wrestling Heavyweight Championship belt is the most prestigious belt in wrestling.
Absolutely. And I think a lot of people understand that tradition.
Yes.
And you know, it's like the big gold belt. And I hated that big gold belt when Ric Flair brought it out. But when you started seeing it, when football teams like Super Bowls, or they would win the World Series or whatever, they would have a replica big gold belt. You know, they weren't holding up the WWE Championship. And then really that big gold belt turned into the NWA belt, because that's what happened. If you remember, they dropped the NWA belt 10 pounds of gold, and they brought that big gold belt. Mm-hmm. And be it here or there, people recognize that as the legitimate.
But that NWA title is still the same look that Nick Aldis carries to this day.
Right.
And that's a belt that's been around for so long. I mean, that is a recognized symbol of excellence.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? I mean, anybody that watches pro wrestling and it's truly a fan of the business, you have to recognize the NWA title. Because, I mean, and you go down the list, you know, Hulk Hogan wrestled for the NWA title. He challenged Harley Race for it.
Did he?
Never won it, but he challenged for it.
Right.
Yeah. You know.
So, but yeah, I mean, let's see. But last night's card was by far one of the best cards I've seen in a long time, and I truly believe it because all the fans were there. I do think you had a main event that was making people fight.
Listen,
look, like when Jorge Masvidal,
that was like the BMF pay-per-view.
Yes.
Because every fight that was on that card, man, those guys, there was no decision, Vic. There was no decisions last night. Everything was either doctor stoppage or, you know, the fighters were finished.
Yeah, right. So it was a great night of fights last night. And, you know, they've got big ones coming up with Michael Chandler taking on Charles Oliveira for the lightweight championship.
That's going to be a barn burner.
And so we'll be able to have a...
I think Oliveira's going to be hard to beat, man. I'm leaning towards him in that fight. Even though I like Michael Chandler, I'm leaning towards Oliveira.
Yeah, Michael Chandler looks good. But, you know, the problem with him is sometimes he'll go really good, and then he'll have a little bump.
Yeah.
So you don't know if his is going to be a bump.
He is vicious, though, man.
Yeah.
That's going to be a good fight. I'm excited about Nate Diaz coming back. Dana said that Nick Diaz is looking for a fight.
Right.
So I'm looking. I would really like to see the Diaz brothers kick it into high gear and give us some more. Look, at the end of the day, man, you know, Nate Diaz has never held UFC gold, but my God, he's been involved in some of the biggest UFC pay-per-views that they've ever had. You know, I mean, his 2 fights with Conor McGregor were cash money. And then when he fought Mazadov in the BMF title, I mean, my God, the energy in that pay-per-view was unreal.
So Nick Diaz's last fight was January 31st, 2015 against Anderson Silva.
Good Lord.
So in turn, we're now, past 6 years, and I like Nick Diaz.
I like the Diaz brothers.
I think the Diaz brothers can sell a fight. I think the UFC has done. I don't know if it was truly the UFC or if it was the Diaz brothers, whoever was causing the issue for not having a match. But you know, I hope whoever they get for Nick Diaz is going to be comparable. I would rather see him fight someone. I don't want to see him fight some brand new guy, but at the same time, I don't want to see him fight the top of the division in the middleweight. Because if he was to, you know, now I know UFC is notorious for doing that. No matter if you come in, you're fighting the best of the best.
Well, you think about this though, seriously. Think about this for a second. Nick Diaz is coming in. And you said it, Nick Diaz and Nate Diaz, man, they sell fights. And that means they translate into pay-per-view buys. I would absolutely, man, depending on who's standing up there on the top of the mountain at the time, if it makes sense from a business perspective, man, you know, give Nick Diaz a warm-up fight, but then he's next in line for the title.
Right.
Give him the shot, man. You know,
I mean, like, here you go with just from UFC, you got Robert Whittaker's number one, Paulo Acosta, Marvin, who he's getting the next one, Jared Cannonier, Derek Brunson, Darren Till, Jack Hermanson, Kevin Gastelum, Uriah Hall.
I think Darren Till and Nick Diaz would be a good fight because the trash talk between those two would be very entertaining.
I could see that one.
I would like to see Darren Till and him throw down.
And Darren Till wasn't on the last card because I think he got COVID, maybe.
I think that's correct.
And so in turn, I think out of that list right there that I just read, I think Darren Till would probably be the best one.
Yeah.
It would help Darren Till if he wins, and it helps Nick Diaz if he wins.
Now, has there been any more talk about Francis Ngannou and John Jones, or is John Jones still playing games?
The last, what was said was John Jones has talked himself out. He wanted $30 million for the pay-per-view, or to do the fight, and UFC said no, and now they're going with Derek Lewis versus Francis Ngannou right now. So that looks like that's going to be the first fight. And that first fight was so boring. That's going to be a hard sell. I mean, unless
I hope Ngannou gets his hands busy early and puts that one to bed because that's going to be a snore fest if not.
Yeah, that's going to be a hard. I don't want to see it, but that's where it looks like it's going. Honestly,
so John Jones basically went up to heavyweight just to get out of having to fight.
I guess.
Well, because he vacates the light heavyweight title. Oh, I'm going up for the title. Okay, well, what were you hoping for? Were you hoping it was going to be Stipe? Were you putting your money, your wagering on what you perceive to be the easier fight? Because I don't think Stipe would be an easy fight for him.
No.
But now you got Ngannou standing there in front of you. And let's be honest, the last few guys that John Jones has fought that were heavy strikers, he was against them. Yeah, he won. But he wasn't in there, man, putting on the flashy shows and stuff like because he knew, man, if he got in there and got too stupid, it was going to be lights out for him. And Ngannou is that man.
Right.
That will turn the lights out on him.
Now, John has come out and said that it's not true, that it wasn't $30 million or whatever. But, be here or there, it's all this money. You know, I've heard everywhere from, they offered him $8 to $10 million. He said, no, that's not enough. So I'd really like to know what his actual number was. And he's like Conor McGregor in the aspect of there'll be a fight and he'll post stuff on Facebook. It's like, I don't care what Conor said. Like you said that he posted something about Usman. I don't care. Because what will happen is if he, let's say he beats Dustin Poirier, nothing's going to happen. He'll never fight Usman. You know what he'll do? He'll just keep talking on Twitter. All right, well, fight's off, or this or that. You know,
yeah.
He's never going to do it. John Jones is identical to it. When Francis won the belt, he said, "Let's play. I'm ready. Let's play, or whatever." So he said, "Okay, let's fight." He goes, "Well, I need more money."
Right.
You don't post anything if you're not going to actually want to fight. Then don't put. You're not.
Well, but now his argument's going to be putting him and Ngannou together is going to be big business, and he wants his cut of the pie.
Yeah, I understand. And I understand it's an extremely dangerous fight for him. But, I don't know. He just runs his mouth, and it gets me frustrated.
Yeah. Well, and I think Conor McGregor's reached that point where, first and foremost, I do not believe the man has the desire to continue fighting like he claims he does.
No.
I believe he's a very competitive individual, but I believe that through his business ventures, through the fighting world, as well as into his proper whiskey, he now has so much money and has other things that he's looking at, and his clothing line, his Austin McGregor clothing line, if they're still doing that. I haven't seen anything on that one in a while, but he has so much money now. He's not hungry for it like these up-and-comer guys are. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
Hell, I'll be honest with you, he's not as hungry for it as Dustin Poirier.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, because Dustin Poirier is still an active fighter on the active roster. Yeah, I mean, it's a good fight and all that stuff, but, but Poirier fights with a hunger because, Poirier's not doing bad for himself, but he ain't got Conor McGregor kind of money. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
And he was an interim champion, correct?
Correct.
So he has never really been the full-on champion. He still wants to taste UFC gold. He still has his legacy to fulfill.
Right.
Conor McGregor right now could walk away from the sport of the UFC, from mixed martial arts altogether, man. And what has he got left to do, man?
Mm-hmm.
I mean, the guy has accomplished so much. And, like Mazadov said, I appreciated his perspective here. Yeah, it didn't work out his way last night. But, at the end of the day, man, look at the money that guy's got now. Look at the life he's got because of fighting. Mazadov could hang it up right now and walk away, and he's fine.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? I mean,
he would definitely be able to do the circuit, doing just autograph sessions and stuff, probably training or whatever.
Yeah, he could focus like Matt Serra. He could become a coach or whatever. But
right.
I'm not saying that's what he's going to do. But But I don't believe. But McGregor's one of those cats that likes to keep stuff stirred up, that keeps his name in the pot. But age gets to be a factor, and the guys that are out there now, the top of the food chain in some of these divisions, have kind of moved past that bell curve on him. While Conor's really good, there's no taking anything away from him on his striking. Dude's ground game still sucks.
Right.
Okay, and he can be finished. Because Dustin Poirier finished him.
Oh, yeah.
So.
Yeah. So, let's see. What else is going on? I tell you, we just talked about the NWA. Their next pay-per-view is coming up in June. And it's called, I think it's When Shadows Fall or something. I don't know what it is. But I think that's the title. My question is, they're now on a pay, which is fine, and they're on Fight TV. You pay $5 a month, you get to see the new episodes of their show, Power. Right. And MLW is going to Vice TV.
Ooh, that's good.
And you got Impact Wrestling on Access TV. And if you remember when Impact was jumping around, they went to different spots, and I wish I could remember the names, but they were like these little offshoot brands. Where do you think it would be wiser to go to a TV station like Vice TV or Access TV where not a lot of people get it, or to have someone pay for it? I've been thinking about it. It's like, I wonder which one, because if I can't really, I don't know where to watch Vice TV or Access TV.
I think.
Which model do you think would be the best for?
Well, we live in a day and age with subscription services. And I think that you would be better served to pay $5 a month, and where you're going to find the content.
Right.
Whereas right now, like you said, if you don't live in an area where they have the channels for that, I don't know, man. It's just it's very. Now
I'm not trying to rain on the MLW's parade by just saying, it's just Vice TV, but still, be here or there. If there's only 200,000 people watching it, or whatever the case might be,
right?
And that it's not in that many homes across the country. Well, would it be better off just to be on a service where you get someone to pay $5 a month? Where I think NWA has a name where I'm paying $5 a month to watch it.
Right. Yeah, I mean, it's tricky, but I think that I think one of the things that's going to help a lot of these younger promotions or even some of these smaller promotions is working together, because AEW's relationship with Impact Wrestling has been phenomenal and has given them a lot of exposure that they may not be getting right now based on their TV deal.
Right.
So
that's what they need to do. They need to work together. They need to make sure it's smart.
Well, and let's be honest, AEW has been good for NWA too, because Thunder Rosa defended the world title, the female world title on there.
Right. So but what was nice back in the day, if you will, when these guys were jumping from promotion to promotion. I guess because you get so much, you could watch back then. You would only see the Von Erichs if David came to Georgia.
Right.
But you might see them in the magazines, but you're really not going to see a match. Now you can see Thunder Rosa can't go, well, she can, but she can't be in the NWA as a good guy and then jump over to AEW as the bad guy like the Von Erichs were doing. That's the one thing about
it is a lot.
Now with the internet and the stuff, you can watch it, and these guys have got to make sure that their characters stay somewhat, I guess it's going to be consistent, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
I think.
Yeah. It is a lot of programming, like you said, because back in the day, we didn't have to worry about trying to keep up with watching AWA or World Class Wrestling or any of that. And I mean, really, WWF wrestling at the time was only limited to Sundays. In the evening there. We didn't have the programming available to us like they had elsewhere. So, all of our wrestling really just came as
you got the weekend. If you don't watch it that weekend, you don't watch pro wrestling.
Yeah, you're not watching pro wrestling. Saturday and Sunday was it.
Right. And then WWE started to get primetime wrestling, and from that point on, it slowly grew into what it is now.
Right.
So, I was just thinking about.
Well, let me ask you this: aside from when they choose to do their pay-per-views, which I know wrestling's still big on doing, well, at least WWE's big on doing them on Sundays. Is there any wrestling programming that's available on the weekends, or is it all during the week now? I think it's all during the week.
I think it's Where you would think it was, because when the NWA started talking about doing 605. I was hoping they were going back to Saturdays. I wouldn't have cared if they were on YouTube like they were or whatever. But I think I don't know why people just say, well, there's no reason to go to Saturday or Sunday. That's when no one's doing anything. People are at the house. And if you're doing it, because that used to be the thing at 6:05 and by 8:05 when it's going off the air. Well, now it's time. If you're that young person and you're wanting to go out to the bar or it's not really hampering anything.
Right.
I think it was in a really good, sweet spot. Now, I don't know I think the weekday, sometimes, you're living your life, you're doing your stuff. It might be harder to watch.
Mm-hmm.
But with the internet, you can watch whenever you want to watch.
That's true.
Yeah, so, is there anything else we got to talk about tonight?
The only other thing I was going to throw out there is I watched the new Mortal Kombat movie.
Okay.
And, I don't know when the last rendition of the video game came out.
I think it was like 2 years ago.
But if you're a fan of the video game and those characters, this movie's fun. I mean, it's obviously it's a movie made off of a video game, but they do a lot of things good with it. Do it right, and then of course they make sure that the fatalities are very graphic, if you will, so that they stay true to the video game with that. But don't take it for something that it's not meant to be. You know what I'm saying? Understand it. It's a video game movie, but it's one of the better video game movies out. They actually got some really decent actors to play in this, and it was a fun movie. I mean, so not too long. Sets itself up, of course, for a sequel.
I wonder how many, because I was talking, and I wonder how many people, because I know it used to be so hard to make movies by comic books or video games. You said them people who would play them games would be so furious, and nothing they could do was going to be good enough. If it was Street Fighter back then or Mortal Kombat, whatever the case might be, they were always upset about something. Oh, this person should have fought this person, or blah blah blah. So I wonder how this one is resonating.
I mean, you're never going to satisfy the comic nerds, and that'll probably be the case here. But it was. If you were a fan of Mortal Kombat, this movie was pretty good. I would recommend checking it out.
Let's see. I want to see what it is on Rotten Tomatoes. Rotten Tomatoes has a 55% tomato meter, 87% from the audience.
Yeah.
So that's what that's rating at. Is 55%.
But the audience is enjoying it, so that's what I'm saying. I mean,
right.
If you take it for what it's meant to be, it's pretty good.
And that's what people should. I think when I look at a movie, did I have fun after I watched it?
Yeah.
And if I did, then sometimes I don't care about the acting, and sometimes you can bypass holes in the story.
Well, like I said, Mortal Kombat's got obviously more characters that they can bring into the mix. That's one of the things that I think is a challenge with the Mortal Kombat movie is the fact that it's very heavy on the characters,
right?
But again, they got some decent actors to come in and play the characters. And the fatalities and stuff like that. They tried to stay true to the movie without being over the top cheesy. Does that make sense?
Oh yeah.
So, yeah.
All right. So you have anything else to put out?
I think that's it, bud.
All right. So until next time, I'm Brian.
And I'm Iron Dutch Murdoch.
We will see you later.